Welcome to Cartoon Scary! Boo!
One evening, a young man named Nishant was standing outside his mother's bedroom. He clearly heard her voice call out from inside, asking him to bring her a glass of water. He walked out the front door, but the moment he stepped outside, he saw his mother standing in the yard, casually talking. The room he had just answered to was completely empty. This happened in 1998 in Jamshedpur. At the time, the city was a massive industrial powerhouse, dominated by steel and cement factories, yet entirely surrounded by the vast, untamed wilderness of the Chhota Nagpur Plateau. Because Tata Company had leased all prime real estate in the city center for its facilities and senior staff, thousands of incoming workers were pushed to the outer edges. Nishant's family built a home in one of these borderland suburbs, Chhota Govindpur. The infrastructure out here was incredibly fragile. The local transformers routinely blew out, plunging the entire suburb into up to 15 hours of absolute darkness every single day. People made do with lanterns and oil lamps. During the day, Chhota Govindpur was a busy, close-knit community. But the moment the sun set and the power failed, the physical isolation of living on the edge of the forest took over. Everyone retreated indoors. The streets went dead silent. And in that darkness, local paranoia had room to spread unchecked. That paranoia found a target in a deeply reserved Punjabi family living diagonally across from Nishant's house. They kept to themselves, which was enough to spark rumors. When the husband of that family died suddenly, the neighborhood whispers crystallized into a specific accusation. His wife was practicing black magic. Soon after, the family's eldest daughter suffered a severe mental collapse. Neighbors watched her pace her rooftop at dusk, muttering to herself and repeatedly spitting in tight circles. Right next to their house, a large guava tree that had supplied fruit to local children withered and died in a matter of weeks. If we look at this map of the neighborhood, with Nishant's house here in the center, we can track exactly what happened next. Right across the street was a large vacant dirt plot. Over the span of just 2 weeks, a local boy was hit by a train on the nearby tracks. The next day, another boy hanged himself. Shortly after, a third boy drowned in a local dam. 3 brutal deaths, all clustered tightly around this single intersection. The neighborhood immediately went into lockdown. The previously friendly, open-door community completely shut down. Families refused to let their children play outside, and as evening approached, no one dared to leave their homes. They physically isolated themselves behind locked doors. To Nishant's family, the deaths were proof that the neighborhood rumors had graduated into a concrete, lethal hex. A threat was now visibly tightening its grip around their property line. Inside the house, Nishant's older sister began to change. She stopped talking to the family and refused to eat anything. Her physical health deteriorated rapidly. She would sit in complete silence, only occasionally breaking it to cry without any explanation. They admitted her to the hospital, but doctors couldn't find anything medically wrong with her. Then, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, Nishant heard a strange sound coming from his sister's bedroom. His father quietly opened the door and found his frail daughter sitting rigidly on the floor in a prayer posture. When her father called her name, she turned around. Her eyes had rolled entirely white. She stared dead at him and began screaming Arabic insults in a deep, guttural man's voice. The entity established control over her routine. Even after they removed every clock in the house, she would drop to the floor to pray at exactly 4 a.m., 12 p.m., and 4 p.m. to the minute. When Nishant tried to touch a holy Rudraksha rosary to her head, she would writhe in agony, screaming that they were driving needles into her flesh and breaking her neck. The haunting bled out of her and into the house itself. Pans of food were thrown from the kitchen counters by unseen hands. Heavy, rotting animal bones appeared on their locked rooftop overnight. And constantly, the distinct, heavy scent of perfume would waft through the empty corridors. The family realized they were unequipped for a threat of this scale. A parasitic consciousness had breached their walls and was now methodically claiming their living space. They hired a local whitewasher who moonlighted as an exorcist, paying him to sleep on their roof to keep watch. A few nights in, an invisible force lifted the man and his entire heavy cot, violently hurling him across the rooftop. He fled immediately. Desperate, Nishant's mother decided to travel 200 kilometers to consult a powerful Baba in Gumla, taking Nishant with her. The Baba gave them a temporary protective potion, but their bus back to Jamshedpur dropped them off at the edge of Chhota Govindpur at 3 a.m. To reach their house, they had to walk a full kilometer through an empty, pitch-black stretch of farmland. The path was completely unlit, surrounded by dense bushes and the sounds of howling wild animals. A few meters down the dirt path, the air around them suddenly shifted. Out here in the middle of a barren field, the suffocating scent of that same perfume surrounded them. Someone, or something, was walking right beside them in the dark. Then, the psychological trap triggered. Clear as day, Nishant heard his father's distinct voice call out from the absolute darkness directly behind him. "Son, wait, I'll come with you." Nishant stopped, turning to tell his mother that his dad was right behind them. Before he could even finish the sentence, his mother slammed her hand over his mouth. She didn't look back, she didn't react to the voice. She just gripped his arm and forced him to keep walking in silence until they reached their door. This encounter proved their walls offered no protection. The entity followed them into the open air, weaponizing the voice of a parent to bait them into the dark. Because the entity spoke Arabic, the family sought out a Muslim cleric named Tazi Baba. He arrived, chanted verses that momentarily sedated the violently possessed sister, and then performed a highly unusual extraction ritual. He kneaded a small ball of flour, pressed it firmly onto the sister's navel, and chanted over her unconscious body. A minute later, he pulled the dough away and tore it open. Embedded deep inside the flour was a grotesque, rotten ball of dark hair, jagged bone fragments, and rusted nails. He extracted several more of these cursed bundles hidden inside the family's furniture, buried them in urns around the house to seal the property, and charged the family a massive fee of 5,000 rupees. The sister returned to normal. The house was quiet. But exactly 2 months later, the violent possessions returned. Only this time, when the sister spoke, 2 completely different entities responded in 2 distinct voices. The family eventually brought in an independent spiritual specialist who uncovered exactly what happened. Tazi Baba hadn't just removed a curse, he had intentionally planted a secondary entity of his own inside their home. He engineered the property to be a permanent extortion-based haunting, guaranteeing the family would have to keep paying him to temporarily suppress the demons he planted. The family was completely stripped of their defenses. The specialized authorities they trusted to save them were actually weaponizing their trauma for personal financial gain. This new specialist, Asiddha Purusha, agreed to help. He gathered highly specific materials, including musk and a tortoiseshell, and performed a massive, volatile ritual right in their living room. He successfully stripped the previous cleric's hex, pulled the entities from the sister's body, and bound them tightly inside a sealed earthen pot. The final step was disposal. The specialist and Nishant's father carried the pot to a massive drainage canal near the local telco plant. As they approached the water, the entities fought back violently. Invisible forces slammed into the specialist, physically bending and crushing his body to the side as he fought to walk forward. He gripped Nishant's father's hand and gave one final, absolute instruction: throw the pot directly into the dark water, and no matter what you hear behind you, do not turn around. They hurled the pot into the canal and walked away. The expulsion worked. The sister's health slowly returned, and the violent possessions stopped entirely. But the environment never recovered. Shortly after the ritual, the family began hearing the agonizing, phantom cries of an invisible child echoing from the empty plot directly behind their home every single afternoon. The physical demon had been banished, but the psychological terror permanently tainted the home. In 2001, the family packed their belongings, abandoned the property, and left Chhota Govindpur forever.